Hey everybody, welcome in. It's another Landmark Live, a production of the Platte County Landmark. I'm Ivan Foley, and look who's back.
Hey, what's up?
It's our man,
Hi.
Chris Kamler.
I'm on pain medication right now. Not a lot, just a little.
On some happy pills.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, quickly, I mean, you're known on Twitter as @TheFakeNed. You're known
Yes.
on Facebook as Chris Kamler.
Yes, sir.
Tell everybody what happened to you and what you've been going through.
It's been a bit of a month. I had knee replacement surgery. So apparently, when you are super heavy and then you decide to run and to learn to run as a career for 5 years, your knee just blows up. And so, and then you umpire for 30 years, and then it's
Too much umpiring.
Too much umpiring. So I had my left knee replaced about 3.5 weeks ago, and I'm on the mend, and I'm
looking good.
It's going to take another couple months to learn to,
Well, you look nice and
walk
fit,
and
man.
stuff. Oh
You
yeah,
look good.
I'm down to 105 pounds. I
That is
feel
pretty
feel
awesome.
fantastic. I feel great. Yeah, it's been a good 3 weeks.
And you're carrying a cane, but I think that's more of a weapon.
That's kind of a pimp cane. It lights up in the dark. It's got a big old thing on the top. It's pours alcohol out of it. It's nice.
So the new knee doing fine?
New knee's doing great. Yeah, everything's doing great. I've just kind of been out of commission for a little bit, and I'm excited to be back on. I just missed my time here at Landmark Live.
We missed you
I missed
too.
the Platte County.
We missed you and
Not
all
fair. I
You
missed,
did miss the fair.
I missed the monster truck running people over and stuff. I missed a lot of stuff.
You missed Fox 4 out there.
Fox
we had
4.
the Fox 4 guys and gals on.
Mark Alford. meeting Mark Alford just
Well,
right there.
yeah.
Come on.
And Cindy went. I got to tell this story again. It was such a good story. Cindy, I was out there. We were setting up for a broadcast like 7 o'clock last Friday morning, and Cindy was with me. I'm like setting up the banner and the whole thing. I turn around, she's gone, and she's over talking to Mark Alford. I'm like, oh, good. She's going to ask him to be on the show. She comes back and says, Alford wants coffee. Like, what? I said, well, did you ask him to be on the show? No, I didn't even get that far. But anyway,
I could see where a Mark Alford just with the you just kind of
prima donna.
had hey
you
give me a coffee.
Hey, you from the Landmark.
You're in the media. Give me a coffee. Two creams, no sugar.
Special guest tonight. I'll probably tell a couple other funny stories about Cindy, just because we have a special guest on tonight who is a nationally recognized cybersecurity expert who just happens to be Cindy Rinehart's son. Cindy, famous office manager for the Landmark.
Executive producer of the Landmark Live.
She's kind of the brains behind this deal, really.
Let's be honest. She's the only reason this place is still running. If we
truth.
want to be honest,
There's a lot of truth in that. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
I'm not going to fight you on that one. But Chris, we will bring on our special guest, Aaron Rinehart. He's got a big story to tell. Aaron, shake my hand, my man. Good to see you
Silicon
again.
Valley magnate. That's what you are, buddy.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I don't know quite about that, but I'm glad to be here.
It's such a thrill to have you on because you've been kind of a big wig for a while. I'm going to say it. You wouldn't say it, but I'm going to say you've been a big wig for a while, and your mom doesn't even let you come in to visit with me when you're back in town on those rare
That's by
occasions.
design.
I know. It's
Yeah.
kind of offensive, really. But anyway, Aaron, tell us your story and how did you get to be the man you are today?
How did I get to be the
cybersecurity field?
How did you get from Platte County to be the man you are today? That's the more
North Platte High School grad. Let's shout out to the North Platte High School.
North Platte? There we go. I don't know if we got time for that kind of
Well,
thing.
give us the Cliff Notes version.
The Cliff Notes version. Let's see. I was in the Marine Corps for a number of years. Did computer systems engineering for them.
Right.
Some unique opportunities there. I was pretty good at it, and I got to deploy and build entire computer systems for countries. One would be the Seychelles. There's a story along with that, but had some amazing opportunities that were direct types of building things, like experience instead of just learning. I learned through building, and that led me to during the same period of time I went to school at the University of Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Mizzou. ZOU. So after that, I got into sort of system engineering, software engineering. At the time, actually, I was experienced in Windows NT server, some old stuff, right? But I went Exchange 5.5, but I think at my age intimidated some employers at the time, my experience in it, and but they would hire me on as a software engineer, which I had no experience in at the time. But I learned it. I learned quickly, and then I became a software engineer for a number of years. It turns out that I ended up getting a job offer from NASA, and I ended up going. That's what brought me out to DC. I was hired on at the Safety and Reliability division of NASA, which was an organization that was created post-Challenger, and so it's actually what I'm doing now. It's not so ironic like how you end up where you're at in life. You know, it's the chaos engineering stuff is what I'm most known for now, but that is really resilience engineering, which really began really with NASA.
Let's start there. Let's talk about this chaos engineering. It's basically a concept that you developed. Is that right?
I did not develop it. I'll tell you, I sort of expanded the domain by applying it to cybersecurity. So it was originally invented by Netflix. Actually, my co-founder of my business created it at Netflix. Essentially, what was happening is Netflix. You all remember when Netflix had DVDs? They simply still have DVDs if you need them, but they decided they were going to go all in on streaming in 2008. And when they did that, so they had a partnership with Amazon Web Services. They decided they're going to build their computer systems to stream via Amazon Web Services. But what was happening is that the computers were just disappearing as a feature of Amazon Web Services. They couldn't figure out why they were disappearing. But as a business, you can't run a business where your service is unavailable, right? Especially for Netflix at their price point. They have to make sure it's available or people will discontinue the service. So what they did was they said, we're going to build our services to be resilient to this kind of problem. And so what they did is they built a tool called Chaos Monkey. What the Chaos Monkey did was it simulated this problem. It actually brought down computers purposefully to determine whether or not what they built actually worked. Right. So chaos engineering, actually, the name chaos engineering sounds very provocative. It really comes from chaos theory. So chaos theory also, where that comes from, is a term called complex adaptive systems. Now, it doesn't mean a system that's complex or complicated or that changes. Well, it's actually a term in applied physics, okay? Because there are certain properties of a complex adaptive system. Now, let me give you some examples so you can, so it's easier for everyone to understand. An example of a complex adaptive system would be like weather patterns, bird patterns, financial markets, nation-state interactions. A good example that I've given before is presidential tweets, right? So if a president gets on Twitter and starts tweeting negative or positive things, there are some countries out there that may see those reactions and make a decision. But there are other countries that are looking at that country that made a decision and also making decisions. It's acting and reacting. Everybody acting and reacting to an event that causes the butterfly effect to come into play, where you have, where it should be 1 + 1 = 2, but now you have 1 + 1 = 5,000 because everyone's acting and reacting to each other's decisions. And the ripple effect becomes very dangerous. Because people are making decisions that are second and third and fourth hand decisions based upon an original event. The same thing is happening with computer systems, and that's where chaos engineering has come into play. Is that our computer systems, so computers and software and the internet have changed the world fundamentally, right? We're now able to get all these great high value things via the internet. We can get our groceries. We can, surgery can be delivered over the internet. Planes are depending on the internet. Planes, trains, automobiles, they all have software and the internet involved in them now. But the problem is the way we build software has gotten so complex, so large in scale, and that the software is one of the only human constructs that can fundamentally change after it's been delivered. You can't do that with a car. You can't do that with a building, right? But software is an ephemeral construct. It's created, and we're changing it so fast. It's hard for humans that are building to understand what's going on, and as a result of that, bad stuff happens, right? Because we build something just to add a new feature or capability for our customer, and what happens is that it may introduce a catastrophic failure for everyone else.
You mentioned, so the company I work for, Cerner, is a company that makes software for hospitals, right? Mm-hmm. So I was in a hospital 3 weeks ago that was using my software, and so you had an opportunity to speak at my company a couple days ago, and it was a great talk. And I think the thing I took away from it is that, it's the software that we built 30 years ago has gotten so complicated that we can't predict how it's going to fail. And so I think part of your theory is that you should intentionally poke holes at things. You should intentionally release the chaos monkey in a protected environment in some ways, and in an unprotected environment in other ways. And you'd much rather do that before grandma's hooked up to the CPR machine than when grandma's hooked up to the CPR machine. So you're proactively breaking something instead of reactively breaking something. Is that basically it?
I don't think I could have said.
Did I catch much of it?
I don't think I could have said any better. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. It's that, you know, the humans, the concept of human error, like, is just being human, and humans, the things that we build are full of error. Like, but both humans and the things that we have constructed both need that error, that failure, to learn how to improve it. So what chaos engineering is about is proactively injecting failure in there's a methodology to it. You're not just breaking stuff. I'm pretty sure that no one will get value out of just breaking things. You have to control the blast radius. You inject one failure at a time. You're trying to figure out. Remember that ripple effect? You're trying to figure out like how that impacted the rest of the system. You try to proactively understand like what is broken, was my understanding of the system correct, and then fix that. And that way, so you don't have grandma.
You know, I have 500 customers I work for basically, and we'll roll out a piece of software to 499 of them will work great. One of them it won't. You know, and it's in that complexity, and humans fail in ways that humans don't think they're going to fail. You had a slide in your presentation of the blast text that went out to everybody in Hawaii that said, remember this, like last year, it said,
right.
Incoming missile, this is not a drill. And it went to everybody on the island of Hawaii, and it was something so unplanned for. It was somebody that missed a safety regulation, and it was just stupid human error. But it's not anything you could plan for, but it's certainly, if you would have tried to break it earlier in the system, you may have been able to stop all these people freaking out. I mean, you're driving in your car and it's like, oh, we're going to die in 30 minutes. Okay, that's fun.
And rumor is the guy that allowed that actually lost his job.
Well, I would certainly hope so.
But that's also part of it. So here, I want to make a point on this. So that guy lost his job, right?
Yes.
So how many other humans, how many other systems, how many other business processes, how many other units, how many other things were involved long before that mistake occurred? Right? Like
and nobody's learning from it, because we have, here in the Midwest, we have Clay County and Platte County weather sirens go off all the time when they're not supposed to, and when, you know, we've had that problem for a long time. That area could be just learning a lot more about protecting their systems, and so it's fascinating. It's a really interesting.
So you're intentionally creating turbulence in a system, right?
Yeah.
With your chaos engineering,
Yeah.
it's kind of like intentionally creating turbulence in your system, like grabbing a meal at Taco Bell, basically.
Yeah, so you're going to see how good is my indigestion system.
Right.
We're going to just
to put it in simple
through.
terms, which
what conditions will my stomach fail?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
You are watching Landmark Live. It's a production of the Platte County Landmark. I'm Ivan Foley, Chris Kamler. We've got a special guest tonight, Aaron Rinehart, son of Cindy Rinehart, and also we should mention your dad. You're also the son of Mark Rinehart.
I am.
And Cindy just gets all the pub, though, because, you know, she's in the media and she's kind of a big wig here. She's executive producer.
She's the Mark Alford of our operation.
But she asked you to get coffee. I mean, you haven't done it yet. I don't know what's going on. But
I'm on my way. It just takes me a long time to go anywhere right now with one leg.
Chris said, you know, you were just in a hospital that uses your software.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did they give you a discount for that?
They did. Not yet. I asked for one, I asked for my guys in the building to maybe, you know, shave a couple of bucks off of it, but
I'm sure it's under discussion.
They can't seem to figure that out. But yeah, it's interesting to be able to connect the things that you do every day to what, you know, in the field that you are. And so, what are your typical customers that you're working with to try to deploy this chaos theory into environments? Are you just going around and talking to different companies about that, or do you have clients, or what's your business model?
So when I sort of pioneered the application of what Netflix had done at Netflix, to cybersecurity, I was actually the chief security architect of all of United Health Group. My job was to define the strategy going forward for engineering for security of the company, and so partially my network is, large healthcare, large insurance, large banking, but it wasn't just my background that led us in that path towards customer. Is that I'm finding that all the banks, some of the banks that I've run into, can't name any in particular, but are doing some of the most advanced things with these concepts and getting immense value from it. And I've been really impressed to see that, because a lot of people look to Silicon Valley companies, they call it FANG, Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, Netflix, and Google. And those are typically your biggest leaders of innovation. But I'm proud to see, because I have seen in my career.
Finance has been they're certainly way ahead of healthcare, and they've been 10 or 15 years ahead of a lot of stuff, just because of the regulations and just because of, they got a decent amount of money in their pockets. So
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, also there's challenges with, I used to talk about this United. I'm sure Cerner's no different. Is that what they call protected health information, call that PHI. Has a tax that your money doesn't have necessarily. It's all dollars and cents at the end of the day, but there's a little bit more. I guess when it comes in healthcare is that if there's a breach, right, in your bank, and you're part of that, your data get exposed, but your account might get compromised. But you'll probably get your money back at some point. But if somebody finds out you had too much fun in Africa or Europe when you're 19, and or they find out private things that people shouldn't know, when that's out there, you can't get that back. It's ever what you put on the internet. It's not, you can't pull that back. And
boy, don't I know it. Ivan and I both learned that lesson hard ways. Yeah. We've been trying to scrub a bunch of videos off the internet, haven't we?
Yeah. Yes, it's just not working.
It's not
I don't know
working.
why. But maybe you can help us with that. But at some point, we need to tell a couple stories. I don't want to do it yet because I want to tease the folks. But I got a couple stories from Aaron's youth.
Oh no!
Just one or two that I know through his mom working at the Landmark. So we're going to share that shortly. But Aaron, now can we talk about who some of your clients are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, mention some of the big wigs that you're working for.
So as a startup in its seed phase, in its stealth phase, very, very, very large banks, or actually you could probably say, let's just say the Fortune 10, Fortune 50 are very interested. My co-founder and I are known for he was known for creating the concept. We wrote the book on it. We just finished another book. I'm writing. These are O'Reilly books. You're a tech guy. O'Reilly there's no other authority. I mean, when you define something new, you write a O'Reilly book. That's kind of like, you're known for the field, right? And I'm writing an O'Reilly book next year on security, chaos engineering. We're really attracting those larger enterprise businesses. You can think big telecom. You can think big healthcare. You can think big. But everyone has this problem, yeah.
Not just the way that these networks are built, but it seems that for the last 10 years, the bad guys have maybe leapfrogged over the good guys. And so, at least in healthcare has been really, really slow to adapt. Cerner is one of the industry leaders, but it's still in an industry that's been pretty sluggish. A lot of hospitals, they're on budgets and they don't have high margins, and you really make a lot of money running a hospital, even though there's a lot of money involved. And so they've been very slow to adapt and update their networks, their operating systems. And so this is a really good environment to be in, but at the same time, there's a lot of work to be done to improve these things. Even in some of these larger Fortune 50 companies, there are still an awful lot of ways to improve. What are the couple top 2 or 3 things that you try to point these chaos things to when you talk to them?
So it's a really good question. So when it comes to the security stuff, when it comes to I'm going to back up to a story. So when I first started experimenting with these concepts of chaos engineering for security, the chief security officer of a fashion data science company called Stitch Fix. A lot of women may have heard of it because it's very high fashion. You answer.
You're probably a lot.
I've heard of
This is a nice shirt.
I do pick stitch or stitch pick.
That's a different one.
Yeah. Oh, that's different.
That's
okay.
The .xxx websites are different. We'll talk about that
Okay,
later.
thanks.
So there's no problem.
But the point where I bring that up is that a data science fashion company, right, trying to make a case for security there was difficult, right? And then when there's so many things you have to do to be effective at security, but he started saying, Aaron, like, what I really like about the chaos stuff for security, it helps me to find what I'm doing well, because it's more about doing less but better. Because we do lots of things. When you have to do so many things, get everything right. See, the attacker doesn't have to get everything right. They have to get one thing right versus everything right. And when you're spending millions of dollars, building and putting these defenses in place, you want to make sure they actually work. So it's really around. So the chaos for security stuff is more about accidents and mistakes that we create that lead to attacks.
And a lot of it is it's really basic blocking and tackling, but making sure that you take it from 90% to 100%, right? I've been in cybersecurity now at Cerner for about 5 years, and there's a list of 20 best things to do. It's called the CIS Top 20. And the very first thing is make a list of everything you have. And this is when I talk to people about their home stuff. How can I protect myself at home? I'm like, get on your internet modem and list out all the things that you have, because you think you have an iPhone, you think you have a computer, you think you have a tablet, but you also have a Nest thermostat, you also have an Alexa, and so your network, instead of having 4 things on it, actually has 36 things on it. You have and once we started to evolve that at my company, it's like, well, we know we have this group of 1,000 servers, but we're not really paying attention to these 20 in the corner, and we learned that, man, we should really probably pay attention to these 20 sitting in the corner instead of focusing a lot on that. And so it's basic blocking, attack, and it's simple stuff, but it's taking it from 9 to 10 that I think has really helped us a lot. And I think that's where deploying something chaotically can go straight to those things.
You can develop a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
You think it's kind of like I don't remember the numbers you said, but there's these 10 over here, and then there's the 30 over here, and you're focusing on all your efforts on the 10, but you need to be doing it for all 40 or whatever, and but it's like over time things are changing. Like no business could fundamentally survive that could not change, but the change inherent, the need to change is also a direct indicator of complexity. So change is needed for value. Change also introduces complexity inherently because things are changing. So you could make an argument that complexity is related to value, but like the complexity gets kind of hard to manage. And and what you're saying is and I'm not saying with the chaos stuff for security, if there's anybody in tech that's listening, is that you got to do everything else still, right? You got to do what was the SANS top 10 of the CIS top 20. There's OWASP top 10.
The NIST, all that stuff.
The NIST, and but the challenge I put out there is when we build things, we have responsibility as individual citizens to protect our things. Unfortunately, people are just making a lot of money on these breaches and on us. And
now I run the AVG free security software. You think I'm covered? Am I good on that?
I will comment on it.
Hey, you know what? You're running more than a lot of people.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's very true.
Exactly
But
right.
I do
You
my
got some-
updates. I'm pretty dedicated to
security
doing
is no different than Christmas time at a mall. Okay, so when the police come around and say, listen, there are 2 things that you can do at a mall. 1, lock your doors. 2, put all your crap in the trunk. And a lot of these companies, they're just looking for open doors first.
Gotcha.
Now there are people out there that if they want to get into something, they're going to get into something. But at the end of the day, they're looking for the lowest hanging fruit. And I think we've seen in some of these gigantic breaches, which we may talk about later, we may not. It's been a door that's been left open intentionally that somebody should have closed a long time ago. Yeah. That's how they get it. I want to hear a story. I want to hear a
Okay,
Platte
well,
County
hey,
story.
I'll just remind everybody, you are watching Landmark Live. It's a production of the Platte County Landmark. I'm Ivan Foley. This is Chris Kamler. Our special guest tonight, Aaron Rinehart, who happens to have connections at the Landmark. He is the son of Cindy Rinehart, who's running the camera tonight.
Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer of the Landmark Live Productions.
Absolutely, she is. And I have a good Aaron story. One time, this is short. Now, I mean, your mom's been at the Landmark for 27 years, right? You were like 9 years old when she started. And one time she had a date.
She's 37 years old.
Right,
How is that
was
possible?
amazing. Well,
Did you start here when you were
child
that's
labor?
incredible.
We were violating
Good for
child
you.
labor.
Holy
laws.
cow.
But, so anyway, Cindy had a day off and she calls in to talk to me at the office. I think she was taking you and your sisters to Oceans of Fun or someplace. But anyway, it was a car full of activity as I'm listening to Cindy talk on the phone, and all of a sudden Cindy stops and she says, "You do that again, I'm gonna make your head spin." And I'm like, "Cindy, what's going on?" "Oh, that's just Aaron." So that's a little Aaron story. Do you remember what you were doing where your mom threatened to make your head spin? I mean, that's.
I don't know. I think that was more of a regular occurrence.
More than once, maybe, you think?
It stuck with me. That was like 26 years ago, Aaron. I remember it like it was yesterday. No comment on that? You don't remember that specific?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm sure I deserved it, but
No,
I'm sure my head did spin.
Time or two.
She just threatened. I don't think she actually took action.
Oh gosh, no.
Of
She
course not.
wouldn't hurt a fly.
But and then the first time I met you, Aaron, you were like playing summer ball, and I think you had your baseball uniform on. You just puffed out your chest. You guys were in some tournament, and Aaron comes walking in the room. He's like 9, 10 years old, walking in the room, puffs out his chest. "We're gonna win that trophy, Mom. We're gonna win that trophy. That trophy's ours." Just the self-confidence you had back then. See, it got you places, right?
It did, apparently.
There's a couple quick Aaron stories.
I'll
for
tell
you,
you what, there's some of that
Those are good.
probably directly translates to the world that you're in now. I mean,
Sure does.
it's probably a crazy world of. This is the Silicon Valley world. This is now you're based out of DC, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so but you probably go over there quite a bit, and
At least once a
there's an
month.
awful lot of people going over to DC to do stuff. So
Yep.
I'll bet it's pretty crazy. I'm a big fan of the Silicon Valley television show.
I just started watching that.
Okay, so you need to get through it, and then maybe we can chat. But it's hilarious because it's about a startup company. It's on HBO, and it's comedic, obviously, but it's a world of they're looking for investors, and they have an idea, and then they jump the shark, and then they get over their skis and stuff, and so it's really, really funny. But I mean, you're swimming in the pond with these big giant names and trying to get everybody to get your attention or to get your interest, and so how has that been? What's that transition been like the last few years?
I may write a book about it.
I'd love to hear it, man.
It's been, it's such a journey. You can't read or write you can't read a book. You can't search on the internet. How does one do venture capital? At least the Valley stuff. Maybe you watch Silicon Valley TV show. That show there's a lot of accuracy in Silicon Valley. A lot of people will tell you that too, and it's true. But like there's just luckily I just had a network of other entrepreneurs and that's been my saving grace. But there's so many mistakes to make, right? So many things are not intuitive, and so things that most people don't remember about venture capital. It began in Silicon Valley. That's why you have Stanford, you have Sand Hill Road, and you have that's why most tech companies are in the valleys. They try to keep it all there, and it's there's some things I frustrations I got through that I'll share at a later point when
Let's talk a little bit about your speaking. I mean, you're traveling the world speaking to groups, and you were telling me was it Budapest? You were telling me kind of a funny background story on your Budapest trip.
Budapest show. What was that?
Well, it's the one where some alcohol was involved.
Oh,
Not necessarily by you. But.
Yeah, no. So I speak at a lot of conferences here in the U.S. and abroad, and my favorite conferences actually. I'm not the only person who speaks a lot that sets their favorite conference. Adrian Cockcroft, who's the chief architect of Amazon Web Services, was telling me it's his favorite too. He brought his wife as well, but the conference is in Budapest, Hungary, right? And I've never been to a conference like where people can drink all day. There was an open bar.
They weren't doing that at Cerner.
They weren't doing
I
that.
mean, that's kind of what I do all day, but that's frowned upon.
Hope your boss
generally.
isn't watching.
Yeah,
No, but
exactly.
as a result of drinking all day, I mean, this was a software engineering conference, not a security conference, not software security. It was engineers, right, from all over the world, and then they're drinking, they're boozing it up all day. They had great food, mini choo-choo trains you could drive around, and but like, oh yeah, that's great, that's great. But I've never got such good questions.
They
Oh my gosh!
little booze help you focus.
If you got that
A little
after,
lubrication. I love it.
if you got the late afternoon session, you get an interesting, lively crowd.
That's
you know?
awesome. That's great.
You know, no, but that was a great conference.
It's also good when you have pain medication and you go on the internet.
Well, that's-
I mean, that's I've done some of my
Well,
best
you don't
stuff.
often
That's
need
great.
loosened up. I mean, you're pretty loose.
That's
You're pretty
absolutely-
loosey-goosey anyway.
Those I haven't gone to a bunch of them, but I used to go to VMworld a lot when I was at another company, and that's a whole other culture in and of itself. These conferences and these trade shows, and it's a whole type of cycle. You could just go spend an entire life doing that type of stuff, and I don't know how people get their real jobs done, or because there's always something it seems every week, especially like the last month. I know with all these Apple things and the CES and stuff like that going on, but those you've got to probably go to a lot of those too, don't you?
You gotta kind of be choosy too. Like, I mostly go to like software engineering type conferences, but you're right. Almost every day there's something around the world. Even in like some of the major cities like New York or DC or San Fran especially, there's a conference like every.
Do you go to Black Hat?
Should I say that?
That's one I've always heard about that you should go to once in your life or something, just because it's kind of interesting. The Black Hat, for people who don't know, is it's a hacker conference, and there's varying degrees of legitimacy to it, but it's a good place to learn stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think in general, I mean, I have my opinions on lots of different independent conferences. I'm a maker. I like building things, right?
Yeah.
Hacking has always been about building things. You have to break them sometimes to learn new ways to improve things, right? But I try to focus my time around. So when you pick a con, here's how I look at things: is that conferences should be about finding yourself within your community of other engineers like you, and that's the power of a conference, right? It's not the content per se you get. Maybe you'll learn a few new things.
It's a lot about the networking.
It's not about the networking community.
That's why I want to go to Comic-Con.
we
need to take
Well, we
Landmark
should
Live
do
on the road
it.
to
Yeah,
Comic-Con.
that's totally
Can we
awesome.
do that?
Oh,
You should
yes,
do
we
that.
can.
Amazing.
You should definitely do that.
We can take this camera anyway.
We need to, yeah, absolutely. This is what I'm talking about. Come on,
Cindy's
Cindy,
been-
we're going on the road.
Cindy's been looking.
We need a venture
Actually,
capitalist to fund this
We need to talk about
project.
We need,
Take it out.
I think we know somebody. We need to talk about this because Cindy has asked. She hasn't asked. She's told me she's taking like 2 weeks off here in the fall. And I'm kind of upset with you, Aaron. You're taking away our executive director, our executive producer.
Aaron.
You guys are going overseas or somewhere.
What?
You know, this fall he's taking Cindy. I mean, we still got to put out a
Is
paper.
the paper going to come
I
out?
don't know how we're going to.
How
do
does
this.
ink get on the page?
I don't
That
know.
doesn't happen.
We'll have to
We're
publish
gonna-
it for Berlin, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are
You're
kind
going
of
to be
arranged
missed.
that.
Hell, you might ask me
Well,
to do something.
what's
we
it-
don't want
Yeah,
that.
be right. Coming in office.
Crayons is
Oh, wow,
terrible.
crazy.
Limited
Now talk
edition.
about speaking for the National Press Club. And when you got there, did you say, "Hey, my mom works for the Platte County Landmark," or is that how you got the gig? Really?
That's kind of how I got
Yeah,
the gig. I
that's
mean, they were like, "Oh, Platte County Landmark.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you should
The
see."
Platte County Landmark.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I've
yeah.
seen them on Facebook.
Yeah, no, there's a plaque up in the press club, dedicated to.
No,
Your mom's
I'm
picture
sure
up
there's
there.
I'm sure there's
With
some
the-
memos that have been issued at the press club. Yeah.
So talk about that. Where was that, and how'd that go? And what was your topic?
So that was some of the most meaningful work I think I've done in the past decade. I spent a lot of time giving back through the press club. A good friend of mine, he's probably watching this actually, just knowing how addicted to Facebook and news he is as a journalist. But
Mention a name. Mention a name.
Danny Al-Farouk.
Okay.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Danny.
We're sorry.
Shout out.
No, he brought me.
Danny, share this video. We need all the viewers we get.
Absolutely.
He saw the whole issue with sort of Bradley Manning and the whole manifestation of that, and Edward Snowden and Laura Poitras and the whole issue around that, and journalists being unprotected and not knowing what to do if there's these stories that because journalists, I mean, like if we don't have the press as a country, we're really not the United States of America. I mean, the press defends our right to the information that we deserve to have.
Darn right we do.
But also human rights activists have the same sorts of issues, and so I spent a lot of time teaching the press how to protect themselves, basic cybersecurity hygiene type stuff individually, stuff that don't make you at least you're not gonna, if you have a nation state coming after you as an individual, you can't stop them. You just buy yourself time. Really, that's what it's about. We taught them techniques around just basic hygiene, but also sort of how to film in certain ways, and how to understand if you use a black silhouette, people will still be identified by their silhouette. We have technology today that can do that. You can be your voice can be identified, your gait can be identified, your form can be identified. Thank you, Facebook. Just kidding.
Some of the cloud stuff. I know in the Khashoggi situation, some of the recordings that he did with his watch went up to the cloud before they were destroyed, and there's probably just some basic things around that. And it's terrible to say, but if you can protect yourself to where if you're out trying to get media or trying to get a story, and that automatically goes somewhere so that it's backed up, I think there's a lot to that, right?
Oh, my gosh, that's all the case is that so Danny met with me and a few other journalists at the National Press Club. We came up with a course of one of the biggest things we taught, which is it's just I wish there was easier ways to use something called PGP, pretty good privacy encryption. It's one of the only free encryption algorithms you can use that really is pretty defensible. But like the software it's kind of hard to teach encryption just because it's not intuitive. So that's what we spend most of the time really teaching is the encryption will buy you that time. You produce the story, you encrypt it. You're gonna have a good amount of time because it takes a while to break a good passphrase and a strong key. But that's what we taught. That's what we and you're exactly right. We also taught sort of the things that you wouldn't think are part of the chain of events when you're using tech, right? Most of our software now does not really desktop stuff, even though it's on your desktop. It's all being run out of Amazon Web Services or Google or some data center elsewhere. They're doing backups, copies, manipulation. The power of the computer has been moved there, that's a solid point.
Okay, Aaron, let's talk about what is the dark web and what's on it, and do we want to go there?
He'll have to kill you if
Okay,
you answer this.
let's
You
get
understand that. Now we're getting into dark stuff here.
But Chris wanted me to ask what's on the dark web.
I have a couple of website addresses that we
that's
probably don't want to
later.
talk
Okay,
about
that's
that, but yeah.
Let's talk later.
I think I think the dark web is constantly sort of evolving. It's it was originally sort of became big with the advent of Tor. Tor was originally invented by the Navy, right?
Sure, let's go with that. It was
just
just about anything bad was invented for good at one point in time.
Yeah, true. But the Tor essentially what it does is it allows you before you connect to the internet, you connect to Tor stands for the onion router. Okay, what that means is there's lots of layers of anonymity type of connection. So I'll explain how it works. So you connect to Tor. Tor will immediately connect to 3 random things. You're moving to 3 random things you don't even know about. And then you end at another computer that you're surfing the internet from. And it makes it very difficult for people to track you and see what you're doing. But what people have done is they've launched servers and stuff that are on this different identified network. And then you're able to sort of you can't access it directly from the internet, but you can access it from this isolated and anonymized in a way sort of network, which makes it the dark web is very complicated, difficult for law enforcement agencies to really, because of that great anonymity, right? It makes it difficult.
But it's also very marketing. I mean, it's a black market. It's just a very good one. You in my world, you can go on to Tor and the dark web and get medical records of people. You could buy
Yeah.
them. They and the prices dropped, and you can go onto these websites that look like Amazon and say, hey, what would you like? And then the other thing that hits consumers is that you can buy groups of computers that can go attack other computers. It's really fascinating the level of complexity that's out there, and how much I work with a couple of guys that spent decades fighting these people in for the armed forces and the CIA and stuff. And some of the stories they tell you are just amazing about how it's like anything you would buy on the internet today, you could buy in a negative fashion, in a crime way, on the dark web. It's just as user friendly. You pay and get
customer
coin.
service.
You can call somebody up.
You do. It's legit.
Wow.
And the other fascinating thing that we see at our place, and you see it everywhere, is how 9 to 5 it is. So we've been down in our security operations center, and I'm not telling any stories that aren't secret or anything, but you can see where traffic comes from. So we can pull up a map of the United States, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. You can pull up a map of the world and see, okay, well, right now a lot of people in Canada are trying to hit our websites, and a lot of people in the United Kingdom are trying to hit our websites, and it goes with the sun. And then you see a lot of negative traffic right at 9 o'clock in let's say North Korea. You'll get all this traffic, and then at 5 o'clock all the traffic will go away because they hire people to just go in and try to hack your system, and then they work and they punch in,
Then
and they
done.
punch
Done
out
for the day.
And it's the level of, I don't know, the level of criminal activity is almost comical, to where it's just a guy with a, you see like the Wile E. Coyote cartoon, you see him punching in, you see him punching out. It's crazy. I don't live a lot in that world. I live more on the blinky light world. But I'll bet you've got some stories that you probably can't even tell about that world.
So that's all. I mean, I don't think I could say it any better than you did, to be honest. I mean, that's the world we live in. I mean, but we talked a couple times about what you do to defend yourself as a company or as an individual. But as a nation state, if they're coming after an entity, they're going to do an APT, an advanced persistent threat, right? They're gonna slowly creep and look for news announcements and find people in the news and follow them, and maybe physically, right? They're gonna get in. They're gonna find a way to break in. But the code and the software they use is not very sophisticated stuff, right? I'm sorry. It is super sophisticated. The nation state type actors. So they've got all the money of a nation to put behind it, and it is very much 9 to 5, and they got their shifts. And the rest of the 94% of actual malware and code and the exploits companies is low hanging stuff that should code that is crap code. It should never work. But it does because we make mistakes, or as individuals or as companies, we leave these holes. We have very sophisticated engineering here. Is like Lieutenant and the 30 talking about very sophisticated engineering here, but make some mistakes over here because maybe we had a changeover of staff, or we didn't know we had to do certain things, or we're just humans.
It's an Ocean's 11 level of complexity versus a pickpocket level of complexity. They both exist, but you get frustrated that a pickpocket, all you have to do is move your wallet from your back pocket to your front pocket, and you don't know to do that. And so that's the world. I've given a couple of talks at my company about, what you should tell your grandmother about cybersecurity, and it's not complicated. It's, there was a great story 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you saw this or not, but a 94-year-old woman was thwarted a cyber attack when somebody called her. Now, this is another type of cyber attack that happens. People will call you up. It's happened to my mom. People will call you up and say, "Hi, I'm from Microsoft. Your computer's broken," right? And so then my mom said, "Oh, hi, Microsoft. Yeah, no, my computer's been running really slow." And then they take you to a website and they try to get on your computer, and they lock your computer and they ask you for money, and then you have to throw your computer away. This woman, 94 years old, picked up the phone and they said, "Hi, we're from the FBI. We know that you've been looking at pornography on your computer. We need to get on your computer or something." And this woman had a level of complexity in her personal cybersecurity. She kept individual passwords. She didn't use the same password on Amazon that she used on Hotmail. She didn't use it, and she kept them all in a safe, secure place. And she was wise enough to know that this was garbage. And she stopped somebody from jacking with her computer, which is hilarious. It's a great story. But it's really, really simple stuff. Don't worry about the big stuff. Don't worry about the big giant stories of Capital One and Equifax and all that stuff. Just simple things. Don't use the same password that you use on Amazon as somewhere else, because your password on MyFitnessPal is going to show up on the internet, and then they could get into all of the websites that you use that same password on. Use a password logger like LogMeIn or LastPass or something along those lines.
I use one.
Yeah, and it's 3 or 4 or 5 things, and in fact maybe I'll do a column about it, because
awesome.
It's legitimately 3 or 4 or 5 things that you can do, and then just hope that the people in charge of these big networks listen to the stuff that you're telling them and try to stop a lot of these things before they happen, because they're getting worse, they're getting bigger, and we're kind of in a race against the clock on a lot of that stuff. This Capital One thing that came out last week,
It's still unfolding.
It's still unfolding. There was a guy that got pissed, and he stole a bunch of stuff, and he didn't work for him, and it's kind of really complicated, but it's going to make a good movie someday, I think.
Well, there you go. Hey, Aaron, before we get away, now your company has connections to Netflix, right? Tell us the connection there.
My co-founder he ran the traffic, so that's the network team. So if you don't know much about Netflix in terms of their internet footprint, when he was there, it was roughly 38% of North American internet was Netflix. So he could say he was one of the people who ran some of the most a third of the internet, right? Nice. Netflix is now, I think, in the 40% range of worldwide internet. So the engineering footprint takes to pull that off. But so he ran several teams at Netflix, and that was part of his need to fix a lot of the problems. That's where Chaos Ninja was born out of.
Can you help me get my bill down? I see it's up to $12.99 a month. You get any help there?
I don't know. We can maybe.
Maybe they could get you access to a couple extra channels.
Well, there you go. That would be.
Cinemax is pretty good.
We would do some chaos engineering. Turn off your service for a while and see if you.
Break it down. Hey, everybody! You're watching Landmark Live. It's a production of the Platte County Landmark. We're about to wrap up with Aaron Rinehart, nationally recognized cybersecurity expert.
He's a big deal.
He is a big deal. Chris Kamler is a big deal in Kansas City as cybersecurity. Yeah, you are. Don't understand.
Just because I break a lot of stuff. I am the chaos monkey in my company.
At least you're doing something productive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But hey, we got a couple of exciting things coming up at the Landmark, I think, Chris. I mean, you'll be back on a show soon, I hope.
I hope so.
If you're
unless
you're going to tear up another knee.
Getting better and better every week.
Okay.
So.
All right. We've got. Oh, and if you've ever wanted to hit me at a dunk tank, I'll be at a dunk tank in downtown Platte City on Tuesday night, August 13th. So come by and throw the ball. Be sure to throw the ball at the target, not at me. But if you hit the target, they'd say I'll go in the water.
I think that should be on Landmark Live.
We might have to. Your mom might produce something there. I mean, she's
high school football season is just around the corner. I don't know what North Platte's got for this far. They usually have a really good football team.
Aaron, you in tune with the North Platte Panthers?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not. I couldn't tell you how the Redskins are doing.
You Redskins fan?
It's not well.
I'm a Chiefs fan.
It's not well. Yeah, the Chiefs are doing much better.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. We're gonna wrap it up. Hey, Aaron, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it, man. That was awesome.
And Cindy, I hope that Cindy.
Good job, Cindy.
Works while she's on vacation with you, but I mean, that's just me.
We'll keep it working.
We're okay.
Yeah.
You guys, hey, we'll be back with another Landmark Live soon. Watch our Facebook page for updates. Until then, we'll see you. Thanks.
Thank you.